So good morning, seventh graders. Today's a Friday, end of the last week, and we're going to talk about today identity property of 0 and 1. Hopefully everybody finished it in, and the assignment is actually from yesterday. It's H15. I apologize for that. So let's start on the first slide. The first slide, it's actually distributing numbers and negative numbers into the parentheses. Because of in the first example, you see a 3, right? And in front of 3, there is a negative sign. So there is two things you have to be very careful. Number one, multiplying that 3, every single thing inside of parentheses. For example, 3 times 1 and 3 times 8 and 3 times 2. Okay, so every single term, 3 times 1, it's a 3. And 3 times 8, it's a 24. And you need to put the variable next to it. And 3 times 2, it's a 6. And you need to put the variable next to 6, which is n. And the second thing, you have to be very careful. It's about the sign. Because if you see a negative 3, it's a negative sign. So you need to reverse all the signs that you have inside of parentheses. For example, the first term inside of parentheses, it's a positive one. So it has to be negative. You need to reverse it. The second term, you have Adam, and in front of it, there is a negative sign. So you need to reverse it, becomes positive. And the last thing, it's the same thing. So you need to reverse to the positive, okay? So these are the practice that we learned from last week. And the second example, there are now 3 things you have to be very careful. Number one, you need to multiply the number inside of parentheses with every single term, the thing that outside of parentheses, which is 7. So number 2, it's about the negative sign in front of 7. And number 3, it's about the like terms. So let's do the number 1. Number 1 is just basically, let's multiply 7. 7 times 4, it's going to be 28q. And 7 times 5, it's a 35. And there is a 5 in front of everything. So because of we didn't do that 5 with anything, so you need to put it in front of everything. So now let's think about the first term. Because of the first term, it's a negative. So, and you see the negative sign in front of parentheses, you need to make it positive. And the second thing, it's a plus 5, so it has to be negative in front of 35. Okay, so number 3, now you need to find out which terms are like terms. The like terms, that the terms has the same variables or the same kind. For example, in here, let me use a different color for this one so you can see it clearly. So for example, the 5, it's a number itself. Is there any number a number itself, which is 35? So you need to combine those like terms together. For example, 5 minus negative 35, it becomes, what was that? Negative 30, right? And there is a 28q itself, and it's a positive. So there is no other like term for q term. So you need to just write it down in front or at the back of this negative 30, okay? And next example, it's also another kind of example. As you see, this time, so you see the negative sign in front of parentheses, but that negative sign doesn't affect this negative sign, the negative sign in front of 4h. It's because the negative sign in front of parentheses only affects inside of parentheses, okay? So let's do this. If I open up the parentheses, it becomes negative 2h because 2h is positive term inside of parentheses, and there is a minus 9, so it has to be plus 9 this time because it reverses. And the last thing, I didn't touch anything with minus 4x, right? So it remains the same because that negative sign in front of parentheses only affects inside of parentheses. So the last step, it's about determining the like terms. So the like terms are the terms that has the same variables. So negative 2h and negative 4h. So if you use your calculator, negative 2 minus 4, it becomes negative 6, right? And you need to put the variable next to it because you're talking about the same like terms. And then whatever is left, you need to write it down next to it. So there is a plus 9, okay? So this is the last step, and let's see what we have. Okay, the last one is kind of, you have to be careful, like multiple things. Okay, so in this one, let me show you. Let me write it down right under it. So, oops, here we go. And now this one, there is a non-negative sign for the first parentheses in front of 6. So I don't have to worry about with switching the sign. So just multiply the number every single term inside. 6 times negative 5, which is a negative 30r. And there is a minus sign next r, and 6 times 4, it's a 24, okay? I'm done with the first parentheses. Now, on the second parentheses, in front of the second parentheses, there is a negative sign So that means I need to reverse everything opposite. So now let's multiply first, then switch the parentheses signs. So 2 times r, 2 times 7s, and 2 times 3. Okay, so let's start with the negative, because negative 2r, and the second will be, actually it's a negative, but I need to reverse it to positive. 2 times 7, it's a 14s. And then last one is 2 times 3, it's a 6, but in front of it's a negative, but because of the sign in front of the parentheses, I need to reverse it to positive. So this is step number like 1 and 2 together, like multiplying the number and switching the signs together. And the last thing, it's about combining like terms. See how many r terms in this expression. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms, right? So how many of them are like terms? So negative 30r and minus 2r, those are the like terms. So you can combine them. So negative 30 minus 2, it's a negative 32r. And now I'm done with the r terms. So you can cross them out. So you can ignore them now. And now think about the number. So there is a, let me use the different colors so you can see it clearly. And there is a 24, negative 24, and plus 6. So these are the like terms because those are the number itself. And that would become negative 18. Okay. And the last one, oops, let me use the another color for last one. Okay, last one is just the 14s because I'm done with 24 and 6, right? So I need to cross out so I can see it everything clearly. And the last thing is negative 14s. So there is no other s term. So if there is no other s term or like term for that term, you just need to write it down next to it. Okay. So this is the simplest form of this expression of this number 4. Okay. And yes. So in this kind of problems, as you see, you do multiple skills at a time. The skills that you learned in each lesson in the previous classes. So you need to use all of them at the same time. And you have to be very careful when you move on. Okay, so the next slide, it's about additive inverse. Additive inverse, another name is just the opposite. Okay, so when we say opposite of something, basically you need to put the negative sign in front of it, right? And here's a definition for that one, so you guys can remember all the time, putting a negative sign in front of that expression, anything about that, that expression. So in this examples, it says, write the sum, that means addition of the bottom two expressions. So the first thing is 6, and you need to add that 6 with p minus 6, okay? If you guys remember the additive inverse, it's the opposite of one thing to another. So, oh, by the way, we don't have to add this. Do we? No, we don't have to. It's just write the sum. It didn't say simplify. Okay. Oh, it says rewrite the expression in the standard form by removing the parentheses and collecting the right term, like terms. So if you open up the parentheses for the first one, it's a 6 plus. And because if there is a no negative sign in front of parentheses, you just need to write it down as it is. And then see is there is a like term. So there is a number 6 and there is a negative 6. Because if you're adding additive inverses, it becomes 0. It will be only left p itself. Okay. Next thing. So we have inside of parentheses 10w plus 3. And you need to find the sum with negative 3. So here we go. And now you need to open up the all parentheses to see if there is a like terms. So in front of parentheses, no negative sign. So I need to just write it down 10w plus 3. And so positive times negative, it's always negative. So I'm going to write it down negative 3 or minus 3. Okay. And so is there a like terms? Yes, it is. So 3 and minus 3. So these are the like terms. It becomes 0 again. So the only thing left will be 10w. Okay. And the last one, let's use the parentheses again. Negative x minus 11 plus. And the, oh, by the way, it says not plus. It says opposite of negative 11. So we all know opposite of like just putting a negative sign in front of 11, right? And we know the fact that 2 negative becomes positive when it comes together. So let's open up the first parentheses. It's because there is a nothing in front of it. And 2 negative becomes positive. So it's a positive 11. Now we can see the like terms clearly. So minus 11 and plus 11. So these are cancel out each other. it becomes 0. Only thing will be left just negative x itself. Okay, so this is a review again. It's just a simple seeing that review in the expressions, like what happens. It's just it cancels out the like terms. The cancels out means it cross out and it disappears together, those additive inverses. Okay, and let's move on. The next slide is very, very important. I know we talk about the multiplicative inverse, and there is another name for multiplicative inverse, and we call that reciprocal. Okay, so reciprocal, it's basically writing the expression with the fraction over 1. Writing the expression with the fraction over 1. If you guys remember finding a multiplicative inverse, we basically need to do 1 over, right? So that's thing. So, but from now on, we always use this word, reciprocal. Whenever you hear reciprocal, that means you need to write it down 1 over, okay? So the first parentheses, it says 7h. It says write the product. Product means multiplication. So first expression is 7h minus 1. And you need to multiply that. Multiplicative inverse of 7, which is 1 over 7. It's a reciprocal of 7. You need to put 1 over. And the second instruction, it says, by removing the parentheses, you need to collect the like terms, but there is no such a like terms. So in this example, you need to multiply the number outside of parentheses, every single thing inside. So 1/7 times 7h, 1/7 times 1. Okay, let's do this step by step. So 1/7 times 7h, and there is a minus sign, 1/7 times 1. Okay, so if you simplify this, if you guys remember, like whenever you multiply something with its reciprocal, it's always 1, it becomes h then. You can use your calculator to confirm this. And then minus 1/7 times 1, it's a 1/7 again. Okay, it will become itself. Okay, so now let's try the next example. It says reciprocal of -5. That means 1 over -5, right? And open up the parentheses. So you need to find a product. That means you're multiplying that with 10v minus 5, right? And now you need to multiply step by step. -1/5 times 10 and -1/5 times 5. Okay. Okay, it messed up everything. So let me clear out. Let me just write it down step by step. 1/5 times 10v, and there is a minus sign, but because if you're multiplying with negative number, it's a -1/5 times 5. Okay, or let me do all of them in the same parentheses, times 5. Okay, so there is a two things that you have to be very careful about the second term. So the first one is 1/5 times 10, it's a 2, and there is a negative sign in front of it, so it's going to be -2v. For the second one, there is a 2 negative signs that comes. It has to becomes positive, and then 1/5 times 5, which it's a 1. Okay, so yeah. And the last one, it says 9 minus b. You need to multiply that 9 minus b with the reciprocal of 9, which is 1/9. Okay, and now I'm going to multiply that 9 with every single thing inside the parentheses. Whoops. Here we go. This and times this. So 9 times 1/9 and minus 1/9 times b. Okay, so the first thing is becomes 1, obviously, because you're multiplying with its reciprocal, and minus 1/9 b. Okay, so yeah, in here, like the key thing that you need to remember for now, it's about knowing what is a reciprocal mean. It's just a 1 over, or what is the other name for multiplicative inverse, which is a reciprocal. Okay, yes, now let's move on. So now it's we do a bit of different examples compared to other ones. So next slide is, I'm going to go like one step further. If you guys remember in the STAR test, like a lot of math teachers are talking about proficiency stuff, right? Like your level is 1, or your level is 2, or your level is 3, or your level is 4. 4 means like the very proficient student. So the benchmark type questions is most of the time, like it's a third level 3 or level 4 questions about STAR test. So now we have 2 examples in here. I may ask when I give you benchmark one of these questions. So I'll definitely ask one of these questions in your benchmark. Okay. Wow. Hold on. It's too much. Okay. So now let's try the first one. It says, which expression represents factorization? This word is new for everybody, right? What is a factorization? It means applying backward of the distributive property, which means you need to find out the common factor for each term. For example, so what is a common in each term? Like 32m, and 56mp. What is a common? Okay, 8 is common because I can rewrite it 8 times 4. Thank you so much. And I can rewrite this 8 times 7 for 56, right? And is there any other common things other than 8? Is there any other common things other than 8? So I'm going to underline that 8 with blue. So I'm going to pull outside of parentheses that thing. So 8. And is there any other thing common other than 8? Other than 8?
4.
No, could you look at it? That might be not only numbers. No, I think you know the answer. May not be any. No, it's not a. It's yay. Okay, you got it. It's a letter M. Somebody said it. So there is another common. So the common thing doesn't have to be always number. It can be also variables. Okay. So I'm going to pull outside this time 8m, not only number. You got it. Awesome. So now inside of parentheses, what do I need to write it down? What is left? Because I pull out 8, I pull out m, I pull out 8, I pull out m. What is left? Okay. I don't like that. Oh yeah, 4 and 7m. So the first one, 4 left, and the second one, it left 7. No, not 7m. Because I pull it out the m together. Yes, it is a p. So, and there is a plus sign, okay? So yeah, this is the kind of question in your benchmark you may see. All right, yes. So on the second problem, there are one thing that you have to be very careful. It's the same kind of instruction. It says which expression is equivalent to n plus 0.18n. So there is a 2 thing that you have to be very careful. Number one, my question is, what is the number that will be if there is a no number in front of the variable? What number you have to assume that there is a something, because it's not a 0n. Yes, it is 1. So the first one is 1n plus 1n minus 0.18n, right? And the second thing, you have to make sure that all of them are like terms. Are they like terms? Yes. Okay. Somebody answered in Spanish. See, yes. So yes, it is a yes. So now, if it's yes, what happens if you combine them? Like 1 plus 1 minus 0.18. 1 plus 1 plus 0.18. Okay, what do you think? Yes, it is a 1.82, because 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 minus 0.18 is 1.82. And don't forget putting the variable next to it. Most of the time your answers looks like this. A is a 0.18, B is a like 1.18, and C is a kind of 1.82n. So there is a difference between these two. Don't forget putting the variable term next to it. Okay, that's the very important thing. Okay, so yeah, and yeah, this is the kind of question you will see in your benchmark about this topic. So this is the end of the class. So you guys can now, there is a no assignment because this assignment is from yesterday. It's about IXL H15. And don't forget your exit ticket. And when you're done, you're done. Okay. So yeah, this is the end of the classroom. We will have this again Monday. Yes, on the Monday, I'm gonna change a little bit more thing, and we will also talk about similar thing, but in a different level, different context. Okay. Yes, we will talk about this again.